Hello, I'm here with Philip Hosey, MI0 MSO, the new RSGB Special Interest Group Manager. Special interest groups are important to the RSGB because amateur radio is such a broad spectrum of activities that many people specialise and join specialist groups, hopefully as well as joining the RSGB, of course. And we love to work with and help those to help highlight the work of those special interest groups. So Philip, it's great to see so many special interest groups here with us at the convention. How are you hoping to work with those groups in the coming months?
It's excellent to see so many groups here. They were actually complaining earlier about the space being tight, the first opportunity I had was to invite them as part of the convention committee, invite them here today. It's great to meet them in person, because impersonal emails and that is not always great. So, and actually next weekend at the National Ham Fest there will be other groups, and some of these groups there, so that personal touch, that personal contact is always great.
Yeah, and of course we work with a lot of the special interest groups as part of the RSGB Spectrum Forum as well, but that tends to focus on spectrum and licensing issues. But I think your activity is more about support and joint publicity activities, is that right?
It is, that's correct. So all the groups have a wee synopsis on the website, which I'll be following up after the convention and National Ham Fest to make sure it's up to date on what they really want. And basically, to promote, my job is really to promote the groups through our social media channels and RADCOM and whatnot, and encourage them to send in stuff for RADCOM and that.
Yep, okay. And there's going to be interviews with a lot of the special interest groups during the convention, so on the live stream as well, throughout the weekend. So they'll have a chance to highlight their activities as well, which is fantastic. But really, thanks for what you've done to bring them all here to the convention. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
How's the convention been for you first so far?
Very good, very well organised. Far too many talks to go to. So you just have to decide what you're going to do.
Now, I'm sure many people watching now will know what CDXC does, but for the benefit of those who don't, can you just explain briefly what it does?
Okay, so CDXC is a group of about 750 members, about a quarter of those overseas, and we are focused on DXing. So basically it's about people who like chasing DX and people who want to go on the expeditions. And we also have a line with contesting as well.
Okay. Any particular projects, special projects coming up?
Yeah, well, one of our big things is sponsoring the expeditions, because they can't go ahead without the money. And, the big ones like Bouvet coming up, number 2 wanted in the world, that's costing about $750,000. And so the expeditions around, sponsorships around the world help that out. Now, from our point, we're the biggest the biggest club in Europe, and we gave $3,500 to them, which is our biggest expedition sponsorship, and probably the biggest one in Europe as well. So we're really looking forward to that. They're on in January, and that's one of the big things we do.
Have they got the funding now already in place?
They're a little bit short. I think they're about $40,000 short.
So I think maybe a good time actually just to mention how people could contribute and join CDXC. How would they do that?
Yeah, so basically our website is I think going to appear as a caption at the end, so that's the place to go. You can join there. If you're in the convention at the moment, then we've got a special offer on, and we normally do that. We go to rallies, so we'll be at Newark next weekend, we'll have a stand there. We're at Norbrecht, Blackpool, we'll be, we're at Friedrichshafen as well, so we always do a special offer there. But you can join on the website, and it's PayPal.
And what's the cost?
It's £18 a year normally, and that includes our Digest magazine, quick plug for that. So we produce this 4 times a year, and it's basically a great read focused on all the expeditions that are going on, HF, all modes as well, CW, SSB, and we're just starting, we've for a long time we've had an RTTY column. We're now going to have an FT8 or FT4 column as well. So it appeals to everyone. Now members get this as part of it. If you're overseas, then obviously you have to pay the postage for that. It's also available electronically to members. And what we've done is also on our website, you can access older editions. After 1 year, you can access all of our editions going back for the 40 years we've been there. So it's a great read. And I would say to anyone, if if you're thinking of joining, go on our website, have a look at the digest magazines you can access, and that will give you a really good feel for the club. Now, we've also got, on top of that, one of the big things is about keeping in touch with members. And we've got a very active Reflector group, and I would say there's over 500 members on it. And you can post questions about DXing. So when Bouvet starts coming, people will be talking about what antennas, what's the best band to get. And of course, that's coming from people who have been doing it for 40, 50 years, and people who are just starting. And then when it does actually go live, we've got a Skype chat group, and that will be a member Skype chat, and so we'll be absolutely real time. What are you working, what are you hearing, where are you going? And that happens for every, the ones that are on now, the D60 that's on now, that'll be running the chat today. So it's about DXing, talking to people, keeping in touch, DXers, and all around the world.
So lots of benefits and things. Bouvet on, you mentioned, was January, roughly when in January?
January 23rd, they're currently saying that they reckon they'll be on the air.
So you'd say join before January the 23rd to get the most benefits from it?
There's other expeditions going on. There's P29 that's starting later this month. And we're sponsoring all of those. And the sponsorship will vary between, a small one we might only give £250. If it's difficult, you've got excess baggage is the big problem for most. If you've watched any of the talks here about going on the expeditions, excess baggage costs money, and we tend to sponsor that. So, yeah, I would say absolutely. Well, join today is the answer. But, yeah, I mean, it's a great resource for people who are into DXing, and a lot of them are contesters as well. So we do that. We run our own challenges through the year for working. We've just finished our HF challenge, runs for the month of September, and people are working over 200 DXCCs in September on 3 bands in HF. And then we do the LF one, and then we do the whole one that runs through the year. Members, great. And of course we've got prizes and trophies and all the things to go with it.
Okay, and one more time we'll ask Tammy to put on the caption now of the details about how to find out more about CDXC. That's Chris, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Next to me here we've got CW Ops, which is another organisation, something completely different. And with me is Stuart, GW0ETF, and Duncan, G3WZD. I'm going to talk to you first, Stuart. You're the president, I believe, CW Ops. So firstly, tell us what CW Ops is all about.
CW Ops, well, it was formed in 2010 in the States as a club for sort of committed CW Ops, CW operators whose main mode was CW. And so we have mainly, when it was started as an international club, but it was started in the States, so naturally it sort of took off in the States. But it was always intended as an international club, so there was a bit of a problem sort of trying to widen it out into the rest of the world. But we had directors on the board from each part of the world, and I happened to be the one for Europe. And so I was asked in 2020 if I would become the president.
And you're the first non-US president.
I am, yeah. And because I'd been sort of banging on a little bit about trying to, improve widen the whole thing out, and we ended up with quite a number joining from the UK, for instance, and we're all over Europe now. So I thought, well, I can't really be banging on about it and then turn down the offer of being sort of president, because it was probably a bit of a statement. So that was why I ended up president. And I'll probably be asked. I've been asked to do the next 2 years. We can do 2 sessions, and then we have to go, sort of thing. So I'll probably be here for another 2 years. Sorry,
Duncan, let's get you in. If you could step in a moment, we've just got to get you into shot here as well. You're the ambassador for Northwest Europe, I believe.
That's right, David, yes.
So can you just tell us a little bit more about CW Ops, though? What's it really for? I mean, I know it's for CW enthusiasts, but what does it do?
Well, it does what it says on the tin, celebrating the unique art form of Morse code. But I think one of the things that we are particularly proud of is our training arm, CW Academy. So my role as CW ambassador for Northwest Europe is really to promote CW Academy, get it widely known, encourage people to sign up for our courses, which are absolutely free. We've had, I think, over 6,000 students go through the academy at various levels since it was started, I think, in 2012 or 13, thereabouts. Yeah, so we're very, very proud of that.
Now, I might be biased because I'm with the Norfolk Amateur Radio Club, I should tell you. That's in my day job. And you know there are a few enthusiasts
We'd like
there.
to know what you put in the water up there.
Well, there are a few. There are a few. Roger and Malcolm and Jim and people like that. But so I'm a little bit biased maybe. But I do feel that there is more interest now than CW generally. Is that right? Do you think? I mean, it must be a hard thing to push with all these other wonderful digital modes and everything that people can do. But I get the feeling that it is something that it's working, and you are getting more and more people to take it up. Is that right?
I do agree with you, David, actually, and I've got some interesting statistics in my presentation this afternoon that show how popular the mode still is. The other kind of yardstick is that the sign-up rate for our CW Academy courses from all age groups down, 11 years old and up, the courses are almost always oversubscribed. That will tell you something.
And you mentioned young people, and of course that's something we all want to encourage young people because they're going to be the future of our hobby. So this is something that very much that you can involve young people. We've found certainly when we've gone to public demonstrations and things, we can really engage youngsters with something like Morse code.
Yes.
So do you actively promote that?
Yeah.
Sorry, Stuart, go ahead.
Well, we promote anybody, from young, the youngest up to sort of middle-aged returners, and I think since the 12-word test, words per minute test actually sort of disappeared, it took a hit, and then I think people realise that CW is actually a really good mode to use, and we all know the technical reasons for it, but data modes can equal or even better CW. But what people don't realise is that once you've learnt CW and you're actually on the air using it, you just get a real buzz out of using something which is a skill. It's taken some effort to learn, and it's like sort of learning a musical instrument or even a second language. Once you actually get competent at it, it's just a joy to use, and that's what you don't get that with sort of data. Just sort of the idea of talking to somebody across the world by moving your fingers, and then your brain just hear it, translating what they're sending back to you.
I've heard that if you're musical, it can help to learn. Is that right?
It does, yeah.
Most people would agree with that.
Yeah. When we teach CW now, we don't do the old-fashioned way of sort of 5 words a minute, count the dots and dashes. We don't even call them dots and dashes now. We call them dits and dars. Because when you say it, you're voicing the sound of CW sort of thing. So we start at listening at 20 words a minute, because that means that people can't count dots and dashes or dits and dars. You have to listen to the rhythm, to the sound, to the music really, to recognise each individual letter, and then each individual word. Because you then string simple words together. Like CQ. You're not listening to the individual letters or RST and that. You just recognise the whole sound. That's what it's all about, really.
Lovely.
Head copy.
Head copy.
Yeah.
Finally then, can you just tell us how people can find out more about CW Apps? I guess you've got a website.
It's a nice simple website.
And I think we've got it going to come on the bottom of our screen now anyway.
CWOps.org.
Right.
Everything they need to know is there.
It's a really good website. All the information is on there. Even the courses, the course material is available for anybody to use. The newsletter is on there for anybody to
And they
see.
can join CW Apps as well?
You join by, there is a nomination system.
Oh, okay.
A nomination stroke sponsorship system, because the idea is, the thought was, how do we make sure we're getting committed, serious, CW operators, and the decision was to have a sort of sponsorship system, which sort of works. It's not sort of set in stone or anything like that, but it's basically by sponsorship and then or nomination and then sponsorship from existing members.
With me now, I've moved elsewhere in the SIG room, and I've got Dean Bryce, G0UIL, and you're with RAIBC.
Yep.
So firstly, tell us what RAIB stands for and what it does.
The Radio Amateur Invalid and Blind Club. But because of today's PC correctness, we call it the RAIBC. Just the RAIBC.
And what does it set out to do?
It's supporting amateur radio operators with disabilities. That's its main goal, you know. But we do take supporting members on that can download the CDs from the website.
So you've got CDs. I mean, you mentioned the word, you know, where you can't see people blind with people who can't see. So I presume some of that, it might be talking books, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it is talking books. If you become a supporting member or a full member, which is the disability, with a disability, you can download all the audio magazines, Radcom, Practical Wireless Radio User, every month from the website, or have a CD sent to you. It's your choice.
And roughly what does it cost to join?
For a disabled member it's £10, for a support member it's £12.
A support member means?
Means no disability, but they just support the charity.
Really good, okay. And you mentioned the books that are already there. What about if you want to learn to take your foundation or intermediate? Is there anything to help there?
Yeah, we supply the talking license manuals. That's the foundation, intermediate and advanced, and that's all talking. We get our readers to read the book and talk.
Oh, fantastic. It's a wonderful work, and I'm sure there'll be many people watching as well who might like to support you. I believe you've got quite a new development here. Can you tell us a bit about it? What's it called?
I don't know.
Okay, it's a black box. All right. Radio amateurs are used to black boxes. What does it do?
It's actually an SWR power and voltage from the power supply, and it also tells the amateur radio operator whether their aerial's plugged in or not.
So how does it do that then? Does it speak or something like that?
Yeah. It speaks. First button on it is SWR. The second button is power. The third button is voltage, and the fourth button is the warning on and off, depending on whether you want to have the warning on or off.
I should have talked to you about this before, but does it work now, and could we show it working maybe?
Yeah.
I can hold the mic near. Now, I don't know if Kevin, our cameraman, can get in a bit closer on this, and then maybe we can get it to talk. Where's the sound going to come from? Is it out of the radio?
Comes from this speaker here. Okay, so if I press... Now, what I'll do is I'll just go through it, each button now, and then...
SWR .0.
Okay, that's SWR, and then we've got power.
Watts .0.
And now we've got the voltage of the power supply.
Voltage 13.2.
And then the next button is the warning on and off.
SWR warning off.
So that's off. And if I press it again,
SWR warning on.
so that's off. Now if I get the key, and if you want to put the microphone back down on it, and then if I key the mic now and press 1.
SWR 1.1.
Okay, so it's 1.1. And if I was to disconnect the dummy load and transmit, it will give you a warning.
Please check antenna. SWR is high.
That's a wonderful aid. I
yeah,
mean,
no, it
that's
is.
maybe going to get someone back on the air, maybe after they lost their sight, for example.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people have requested this box. There was a box that was brought out, but now discontinued. But it just told the person the SWR, I think, in power. That's what I've been told anyway. But this does a voltage, and it's also got the warning on it.
Am I right in thinking that up until fairly recently, a lot of radios had voice as an option, at least for some things, but that sort of disappeared as more people connect them to computers anyway? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, there is certain radios out there, but being a charity, they've got to understand that because the charity also loan radio equipment, so we've only got so much funding, where this is an optional extra to an existing transceiver. Where rather than buying another transceiver, you can put this onto any transceiver and have the talking SWR voltage.
And you've got it connected to a Yaesu 450 here, but I presume that will work with other radios?
Yeah, it'll work with any other radio, because this one is actually connected to the antenna and not through the cat lead, you see. So it could go on any antenna. Any transceiver and antenna. Yeah.
That's really novel, isn't it? Well, and if somebody needs something like that, they can contact the RABIC and for an appeal for something. And of course, as we mentioned earlier on as well, if someone wants to just support your organisation, they can have a supporting membership.
Oh, that's correct, yeah. So all you people out there, if you want to join the RAIBC, then just go online. I think the website will be down here, is that right?
Yes, it is. Let's see, where is it? Oh no, I don't know where it is.
It'll be on the screen.
It'll be on the screen. Oh, I see, down there. I thought you meant down there. I should have known better, isn't it? Yeah, it's on a caption on the screen now. Anyway, thank you very much, Dean, and good luck. It's a really innovative product, and all the service and everything, they're wonderful. You bring, I'm sure, the hobby to people who've maybe lost it because of their disability, and it's wonderful to see. Thank you very much for joining us today.
You take care. All right, 7-3 to you all.
Bilara, Judith, you're the president. What is Bilara?
It's the British Young Ladies Amateur Radio Association.
And what's your involvement? You are the president now, but that means you've been involved with it quite a while, I guess.
I've been involved since the 29th of April 1979.
And what were you one of the founders then?
One of the founding members. There were 8 of us. We met in the cafe at Drayton Manor Park and over a cup of tea.
Is it one of the rallies they had there? Oh, I remember those.
Yeah, the rallies, and tried to decide what our constitution should be. Nearly every other country had a YL group, but Britain didn't have a YL group. And for quite a little while there'd been a bit of rumbling that we really ought to have a YL group of our own, so that's how it all began.
Brilliant. And also with you is the chairman of Bilara, Sharon Lewis, 2E0SHZ. Hello.
Yes, hi.
So you're the chairman now.
Yes.
How long have you been the chairman?
2 years officially, 3 years unofficially.
So you've literally chaired it through a very difficult time for the world, really, where people haven't been able to meet generally. Been quite a challenge for you?
It has. But we actually held our AGM just over a year ago via Zoom. We were hoping to have an AGM at Blackpool this year, but unfortunately I got the dreaded COVID, so we couldn't go. So unfortunately we didn't make it this year, but we will be at Blackpool next year. We like to go out to as many rallies as we can. There is unfortunately a lack of YLs in amateur radio, and that's why we're here. We need to get people interested in it. I wasn't interested until around about 2014, and I was...
So what got you interested then?
We moved to Northern Ireland. My husband got back into amateur radio then, and we went to a rally, and my husband decided that he was going to try doing Rainet. And I unfortunately said to a gentleman that I wasn't brainy enough to do amateur radio, because I would enjoy doing Rainet, and he said, if I sat you down now and put a question paper in front of you, I can guarantee you would get at least half the questions right. That gentleman was Philip Hosey, and I've not looked back since. 6 weeks later I got my foundation call sign. A year later I got my intermediate, and I'm currently working to get my full licence now, and I'm working with the Bath-based team.
Distance learning.
Yeah. And they're brilliant as well, so yeah.
Judith, how do then, a lot of people, and let's face it, it's a male dominated hobby, so how then do we persuade some of the YLs to get involved more with it? What do you think the answer is?
I think a lot of YLs are mic shy. I think they're very frightened to speak to OMs in particular, which is one of the reasons that the Bilara Nets was started. So they would have half an hour of YL activity first, where they'd feel fairly safe. And then after that, the OMs would be invited to come in as well and to speak. So it would just give that little bit of confidence.
And I've got Dave Brooks, G4IAR, and Paul Lewis, M1AIB. Hello guys, how's it been for you?
Oh, very good. We've had quite a lot of interest shown on the table. Signed up a few new members, but the prime reason for us to be here is just to have a presence and spread the word and let people know that after the 2 years we are still very much in existence.
I mean, I think as most radio amateurs will have heard of WAB Squares because we all quote them, but we won't maybe know that there's an organisation behind all of that. So can you just tell us a bit about what your organisation does?
Basically, we're a special interest group. We're an awards group. We're not a contest group, and it's about working the Ordnance Survey squares of Great Britain, Northern Ireland, and Crown dependencies, etc. Based on the on Ordnance Survey to encourage activity and encourage or improve the knowledge of the geography of the UK and Northern Ireland, etc.
And, is it an area that you're growing in terms of you trying to get more people involved with your group?
Well, very much so. We've got new members coming in all the time. Our prime area of publicity is the nets themselves, and with the Cycle 25 sunspot cycle improving, 40 metres is now coming very much into its own again, and the amount of activity created on that band is reflecting in the interest shown in the amount of admin I'm now having to do. So,
good. Roughly how many people have you got in your membership?
Oh, it's hard to say.
Roughly?
The membership itself extends into the tens of thousands because it's based on one-off payment, which is a life membership of the group. And bearing in mind that goes back to 1969, 53 years, we've accumulated quite a few over those years. Obviously a lot of silent key, and we can't keep track of everyone, but there's hundreds of active members at the moment.
And so how would people join your group? I think we're going to show the website address at the bottom now. Right. Roughly how much does it cost to become a member?
It's very roughly £5.
Very roughly £5. And that's a life membership?
That's if you're here or at a rally.
All right, okay. And what is it, but for people watching at home now who can't...
It's £7.50 plus it's a 50p PayPal fee, so £8 online. To join.
And I believe they get something for that?
That gives them this book and USB stick, which is the book package with the number on it as a record, and that's, as Dave says, you're a member for life. Then once you're in, there's no getting away from us, I'm afraid.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, good luck to you guys. And I really, personally, I didn't understand. I know that there was a group behind WAB Squares, so it's good to know that you've
put up the web information, so we are reachable, and we're very open to helping people. If they're not sure, give us a shout. Come ask.
Well, lovely to meet you both. Thank you very much for talking to us. And with me now is Bob Titterington, G3ORY.
Indeed.
We met on a Tonight at 8, I think, or maybe a convention video in the last year or so.
No, it was Tonight at 8, and I really enjoyed doing that presentation.
So for those watching there for the first time, don't know maybe much about ARDF as a hobby, what's it all about?
Well, we take small transmitters about the size of a mobile phone, 5 of them, put them into an area of woodlands in separate locations, and have them transmit one after the other. And then the idea is you take a direction finding receiver, go out into the terrain and locate each of the transmitters in the shortest time that you can manage.
And is this equipment freely available? Do you build it yourself, or do you have it available for people to borrow?
Well, kits are available commercially, and a lot of people build equipment, particularly the transmitters, where a smaller number are obviously required because you have a relatively larger number of competitors than you have of hidden transmitters at any event. So there's a lot of home construction support for that with printed circuit boards and so on.
So you can get involved in that way.
Yes, yes.
And I think am I right in thinking there is also some kit which people can borrow if they're RSGB members or clubs? Is that right?
Yes, the RSGB has a set of loan equipment, which currently is with an RAF cadet unit in Guildford, and they're going to be using it next weekend in order to have a bit of radio fun and go out and do a facet of amateur radio which perhaps not many people actually see.
Yeah, and maybe, Bob, this might be a good way of introducing people to amateur radio, because it's not maybe the most obvious way or obvious part of the hobby, is it? But for people who just may be vaguely interested in radio and it's almost a sport, is it something that you think we could use to maybe introduce particularly young people to the hobby?
Young people is one issue. It tends to attract older people who have a dual interest in physical fitness and take part in activity, things like orienteering, for example, and who then are technically interested and then come into amateur radio by virtue of these two facets to their interests. And we've had a number of people doing that.
Now, the ARDF is a group. You've got people all over the country. I believe you're looking for some people to cover other areas. Is that right?
Yes, we're too focused at the moment on the Thames Valley, London area and the Midlands. And we're looking for somebody to coordinate ARDF, both in Lancashire, in Yorkshire and in the southwest, down in Bristol and Somerset, where there's a level of activity. One or two people from each club perhaps are interested, but they need somebody to bring them together and produce a coordinated and active local group.
So how can people find out more about ARDF?
Well, if you go onto the RSGB website, and the address for that will come up on screen, and click on that and you get onto the ARDF pages. There's an events page there which tells you what's coming up. In general, it tends to be more concentrated in the summer, and there's often a series of summer events between May and September. Simple, straightforward, ideal for the beginner, taking place perhaps near you, hopefully, up to which you can go along and have a mentor, help you out, show you how to use the kit, and get you going. And once you start, well, it can be quite addictive.
And with me is Phil Crump, and you're the digital architect for BATC.
Yes, so I run a lot of the digital infrastructure, so the streaming server and the wiki server and forum server and that side of things.
It's very much a family business, really. I mean, you're both very keenly involved with the hobby.
Yes, yeah, you could say that.
So how did you get involved? Was it a question of, I'm interested in this because there's a lot of us get involved because our parents or our siblings or whatever are involved with it. How did you first, was it through your dad got interested in the hobby?
Well, yes, as we always have, there was a little bit of pressure there to get licensed. I did start going into the HF and VHF side of things to start off with. Then went into a bit of a lull period, but then actually got involved with the TV side of things through the digital computing and programming side of things. I started studying that at university, and actually the digital ATV proved to be a way that I could use that and learn more about it.
So what, for you personally then, what, apart from doing all the work that you do for the BATC, what's your favourite part of tinkering with amateur television?
I really enjoy the construction of it, particularly being able to take a lot of what other people in the community have built, assemble it together, put my own spin on it, and then get it all connected up and get a signal transmitted out, and someone else to receive that signal and tell me it looks good. That getting to that point is the fun bit for me.
Is it mainly on the software side for you, or the hardware side, or both?
I would say it's about 50-50 for me. I do enjoy the software side, but also it's a bit of a break from that sometimes to do the practical work and the soldering and filling the desk with cables and getting something working.
Right, lovely. Well, now we've got lots of things in front of us. I know everybody at home has just seen a talk by Dave on a particular aspect of it. Maybe you can just take us through some of this equipment that you've got on your stand.
Yes, so at the British Amateur Television Club, we've got a number of projects that we collaborate on. Several of the projects we've got here are based really around getting people into digital TV a lot easier. That used to be quite difficult. You had to have several a large amount of encoders, muxers, modulators, this kind of thing. I remember seeing my dad doing it with half a rack's worth of kit. But now, using the Raspberry Pi, we've been able to put together an ecosystem that allows you to get into that really quite easily. So this unit we've got here is a demonstration unit for that. So we've actually got 2 Raspberry Pi based units in here, so that we can demonstrate 2 different things, but effectively each half of this is one system. And then with the software on the Raspberry Pi, we can set it up such that you can just plug a webcam into one side, an SDR such as a Lime SDR or a Pluto SDR into the other side, and you can have a digital TV transmitter. And the real idea about that has been to make it a very low barrier to get in, because you can get the SD card with the software already on it, and at that point it's pretty much just plug and play. And then it comes with this interface that allows you to set up the configuration options graphically and is easy to use. But then the other side of this is that it's a Linux system running on Raspberry Pi. You can log into it, you can tweak the configuration files. So if you're someone who likes to go a bit deeper into the system, to tweak it a bit, see if you can get a bit more out of it, maybe customize it a bit more to your system, you can still go in and do that as well.
But if you're not too much into the software, you can already get a card from the BATC, just plug it in, basically connect it all up and go.
Yes, exactly, and that gives you this graphical interface that you can use to easily set up what you need.
Now, I saw that here it's got RX and TX, so does this mean this is a transceiver?
Yes, it is a transceiver. For the TV receive side of things, we do have a separate module for that. It's possible to do it on an SDR, but we actually have another project which you can see one of over here, which is a USB receiver that uses an off-the-shelf module, and that plugged into this will then allow you to also receive TV on it as well as transmit.
So roughly, for people watching now, they've just seen Dave's talk and they're seeing you now talk about the club and what it can offer. Roughly, what would be the lowest cost entry point that people can start getting involved with amateur TV? Roughly. There is I would say probably the easiest thing is on the QO100 SAL2 satellite. We've got a digital TV transponder on there, and there's always a beacon downlink signal that you can see, and being able to receive that, you can actually use a standard satellite LMB, and then the only custom bit of kit you need is one of these mini tuner USB receivers, which we sell the hard to get parts for, but it's a self-assembly thing. I think that works out at about £50 or so. It's a USB receiver. You can get Windows software to run it, as well as being able to plug it into the Pi. You can also get Windows or Linux-based software to run it on your laptop, and there you'll be able to start seeing some of the digital TV signals coming down from the satellite. And throughout the day, there are several signals. There's also a net on Thursday evenings where a lot of the international amateur TV community show off their latest projects and discuss things. So actually here at the moment we have a view of the wideband spectrum on the QO100 satellite. This signal on the left is the beacon, and you can see there are a couple of other signals on there at the moment. And then this is actually a signal that we're uplinking from here as a demonstration as well. And now, if you're not ready to yet commit money to buying bits and pieces for it as well, there's quite a lot on your website, including sort of live streamers, aren't there, where you can actually see, for example, the Thursday Night Net. That they're actually streamed there live. It's batc.org.uk. We maybe ought to mention that now. I think we'll have a caption out at the bottom of the screen for anybody to find out more about the club. Oh, it's batc.tv, I've just been told as well. I should know that, really, being a member, shouldn't I? But anyway.
Yeah, batc.org.uk is the best web address for it. And yes, so there's a streamer on there with, it's basically a, we've tried to group all the useful channels together. So there's a lot of repeater streaming goes on there. People uploading their own streams, and yes, every Thursday evening the net is also received by one of the stations and then streamed through there.
So that'd be a really good way for people just to get a real inkling about what the BATC does, and then maybe you can start committing to some hardware and getting more involved.
Yes, yeah, I would perhaps warn that some of the people on the channel have quite large stations that they've spent a long time putting together. So
I think that's the same for all amateur radio, though, isn't it? You know, some transceivers can be £5,000, £10,000, but you can start with something much cheaper. That's the important.
Yes.
So to join BATC, then rough costs. I think it's £8, isn't it, for digital only subscription for a year?
Yes.
And 20 for in paper to get one of those magazines. One of these.
Yes.
So if we just show you that, there we are. That's the sort of magazine that you get about 3-4 times a year, I believe.
Yes, yeah, 4 times a year. So we put out this publication that contains articles from our members, and if you take the cyber membership, the digital membership for £8, you get that in a high quality PDF, or you can get this printed copy for the £20.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, Phil, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure people now know lots more about BATC and amateur television than when they started. Come to the UK Microwave Group's stand with Brian Harbour, G8 DKK. Don't worry about people walking fast. It's because the cameraman's quite a way away and they don't realise they're doing that. But anyway, good to meet you, Brian.
Yes, hi David. Yeah.
And you are what's your job in the UK Microwave Group?
I'm the membership secretary of the UK Microwave Group.
Right.
So I look after members, subscriptions, all that sort of thing.
Healthy subscriptions at the moment. Good?
Yeah, very very good. We've got about 570 members. Majority in the UK. There's about 100 overseas members as well, spread around the world, but mainly in the English-speaking part of the world and near Europe.
And lots of interest in microwaves, I guess.
Yeah, lots.
And just for the formal side, where does microwave start? Where do they start, frequency-wise?
Well, traditionally 1 gigahertz upwards.
Okay.
So that our lowest amateur band in the microwave region is 1296, 23 centimetres. And then we go right up to, well, the highest frequency I've experienced that people have built equipment for is 288 gigahertz.
288 gigahertz.
Yeah.
That is high.
It's mind-blowing.
Well, it is a bit mind-blowing. Do you know,
Yeah.
I thought that microwaves was one of those black arts that nobody, like an amateur, could ever touch. And then many years ago now, I went to a BATC rally, and they were selling, or they were promoting, I think it was a 23 centimetre video system, using an burglar alarm microwave horn.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really simple circuit with a sort of power amplifier transistor driving it.
Yeah.
And I just never seen anything like that before. And to me, then it made it less sort of unreachable.
Well, yeah.
So what do people do? So people interested in microwaves, they come to you. What sort of thing? Do they make their own equipment, or are they buying it ready-made?
If you went back to when I started, which would be the mid-1970s, I suppose, then we were acquiring things from, as you said, household things like burglar alarms, motion detector, that sort of thing. That largely went away in the 1990s when we went into narrow band. So up until then it was sort of wideband FM, but then it quickly became narrow band, so we're talking CWSSB, FM if you want to.
Was that because the band plans changed?
No, not particularly, but
just to make more use of them?
Because the signal to noise improvement you get over having a narrow bandwidth, as it is on all bands, gives you greater distance and allows us to explore propagation modes, which again is a huge interest within the microwave group, particularly at the higher end of the microwave bands, because we're all still learning, and so are people professionally. Because if you went and asked professionally about operating on 24 gigahertz, 47 gigahertz, 76 gigahertz, for example, I would say, well, it's just line of sight. And for many years, because I teach the courses anyway, the intermediate course particularly, then it took us a long time to get people away from the idea it's just line of sight, and it isn't. I mean, 23 centimetres, 200 or 300 kilometres is not that difficult, and it's well beyond line of sight.
And you mentioned earlier some of the more traditional modes of transmission, but there's things like television and things you can use, of course, with the very high frequency.
Yeah, exactly, and digital television, of course, has benefited from that, because the bandwidth's narrower. and so they're getting longer distances, and all those sort of things, come into it.
You've got a little display of some items here,
Yeah,
I guess for members or prospective members. Can you just take us through a couple of them?
Yeah, well, these I've been talking to people about. Now, this is something that people can buy, and these come from Bulgaria.
Right.
And
what is it?
It's a 23 cent transverter. So it produces 2 watts out, has a very good receiver on it, generates a 2 metre IF.
So it's 2 metres in?
Yeah, 2 metres in and out.
Okay.
In and out. And then 1296 in and out. So it's a complete system, really. You can use it like that, or you can put an amplifier and a power amplifier on it, as I do. But
and the group would help a prospective or member get how to use it.
How to use it, yeah. More than that, we also have in our list the fact that we have loan equipment for members of the group. Mm-hmm. So people who are sort of thinking, well, I quite like to get on that band. So we've got sets of loan equipment, often in 2s. And one of the most popular ones that's really difficult for people to get hold of because they're always going out is 10 gigahertz. 10 gigahertz is a very, very popular band.
We're often worried about the spectrum, and one of the jobs the RSGB does is help defend our spectrum.
Indeed.
And it is the very high frequencies that I think a lot of us are nervous of that we might lose.
The problem that we've got here with the WRC 23 conference and the potential effect on 23 centimetre band,
yes,
which is still ongoing, and of course as a group we have a big interest in that. We're obviously represented by our microwave manager Barry Lewis, G4 SJH, who's not actually here but he's in spirit. Murray, who's the spectrum manager who I was just talking to. Obviously they're involved with that, and so the expertise of the group is available for that. We've also been involved in the EMF calculations as well at the higher frequencies, because again we've got expertise in all those areas to be able to pass on.
Brilliant. Well, before we go, just maybe you can tell us how people can join the UK Microwave Group?
Well, our website is fairly easy to find. It's www.microwavers.org, so you can get to that, and then there's a lot of links to...
How much does it cost to join?
It's £6 a year.
£6 a year? That's a real bargain.
On top of that, you get the chip bank, that bit, where we've got a whole bunch of free components.
Okay.
So, yeah, good value for money.
Joined now by the Radio Officers Association, Peter Gavin, M0URL.
Welcome.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you also.
So tell us more about the Radio Officers Association.
Well, it was formed in the 1990s when the job was becoming redundant and taken over by the use of satellites instead of Morse code at sea. So it was decided to keep the memory alive, keep the history, and have an association of ex-radio officers, ex-coast station officers and aeronautical members as well. And it was formed, and we now have 400 members actively taking part. Also, more than half the membership we found out had licenses, amateur licenses, and so now we have very active nets and members all around the world communicating with each other. Yeah.
But you don't have to be necessarily a licensed radio amateur to join.
No, you don't. It's dead easy to join. You just go online, type www.radioofficers.com. There's an online form. Costs about £20 a year, and we have a publication 4 times a year.
So you get that if you join?
We do indeed, yes, that's part of it. And we also published 2 volumes of history, really, of the 100 years at
Actually,
sea.
we've got one here, haven't we?
Yes,
Let's just
that's
have a
it.
look. We'll just show everybody at home that book. So
it's called The Long Silence Falls, in other words, the end of Morse code, and it documents the 100 years of service that the radio officer provided to the safety of life at sea and the merchant marine.
I must admit, I was a little shocked the way we started, where you just said that when radio officers sort of ceased to be something that people... I didn't know that.
That's right, we were all made redundant in the 1990s, and all the coast stations shut down on the 1st of January 2000, and Portishead Radio, the most famous radio station in the world, GKA, that closed down in April 2000. That was the end of the radio officer as we know him, but they converted and became electronic officers,
Right.
and now they work in the engine room, etc., whereas we were the creme de la creme and reported only to the captain of the ship. So we had an excellent life at sea, really.
You mentioned Morse code, so that was a key part of being that job, having that job, was it?
We made our living by using Morse code. We'd send up to 100 telegrams a day. All the messages at sea had to come via shortwave radio.
And was this even in the 90s, in the early 90s?
Absolutely, up to the 90s. And the international organisations couldn't rely on satellites to cover the whole of the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic, etc. And so Morse code was the only reliable way of keeping in touch. Now, of course, it's completely different, and we're just historical, entities. But
Well, it's wonderful to keep that alive, though, isn't it, for people?
comradeship, and we have twice yearly gatherings, normally in Liverpool or another seaport, etc. Great gatherings, very fun, very much fun. Everyone's welcome, and the more members we get, the better. That's basically it.
Good, okay, so we're going to let everybody at home now see the web address where they can find out more about radioofficers.com, I think.
Yeah, www.radioofficers.com. Everyone welcome.
And about £20 a year to join.
£20 a year. That's it. It's been the same for the last 10, 15 years. We don't squeeze anyone on costs.
All right, lovely. Well, it's been lovely to meet you.
Great
Peter. Thank
to
very
meet
much.
you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and to actually, broadcast a little bit about our association.
Very shy and retiring Chris Deacon here, G4IFX.
Very modest man.
I see. We've only met online before. It's weird when you meet people in face to face.
Yeah, I thought you were taller, but
Oh, you are quite tall, though. Anyway, 6 metre group.
Yes.
UK SMG.
Right.
Tell us about it.
Right, okay, so we were formed, since we've had the origin story over there in the early 80s, to campaign for UK operators having access to 6 metres, because in those days we didn't, because of the legacy of Band 1 TV.
Okay.
So it was formed in the early 80s to campaign with the RSGB, obviously, and to build a community. And in a sense, that's what we're still trying to do, is to help promote the community of 6 metre operators, because people don't go on 6 metres because it's easy. They don't go there because they can always talk to their mate in Germany on a Wednesday afternoon. Do that on 40 metres or something like that. 6 metres, you have to search for it. And it's just a bit more of a difficult challenge for people to experience. But when it happens, it explodes. It's called the Magic Band, and all around the world it's called the Magic Band, because you can be listening and hear nothing, and all of a sudden, bam, something comes in. So what do we do now? Well, initially we spent a lot of time supporting other countries to get access, particularly in Europe. Of course now, well, I guess we and others have been successful. They have, in fact, virtually every country in Europe, with the sole exception of Russia, have got access to 6 metres, and it's now enshrined in the rules. But we're still here to support that community, to help people get on the band, to encourage people to get on the band, to encourage best practice on the band, to help it be more enjoyable for everybody. And right now, the message is, when I first came to this convention, with representing 6 metre group, HF operators would be constantly coming up to me and saying, well, there's nothing on 6 metres, it's a load of rubbish, you can't work anything. I think people have got the message now that actually there's quite a lot, and of course FT8 has expanded the horizons, and I think everybody now has the message there's loads of things going on 6 metres. But right now, sunspots are increasing, and there's some really interesting things starting to come through. So you want to know things like, we publish our magazine, 6 News, which has been constant. I'm ready. Any questions?
Have you ever heard of Just a Minute on the Radio 4? You'd be really good at that. Anyway.
Yeah, right. You need to add the music,
right,
the piano music. So we have a magazine. 6 News comes out roughly 4 times a year, depending on how much material people send us to put in it.
How much does it cost to join? SMG.
Say again?
How much does it cost to join?
Oh, it's £15 if you want the printed magazine.
Okay.
In the UK, slightly more if you're overseas. 10 quid for a digital download of that, which is the same all over the world. And I should say, although we're UK based, we have members in, I think it's currently 42 countries around the world. And that community, that communication between people and sharing experiences is one of the important things that we're trying to promote.
Because one of the nice things I think about this, unlike say some of the other modes and things that you have to, is that lots of radios already have 6 meters because they're called HF plus 6M.
Yeah,
and a lot of people, I guess, don't need them. So most people are just going to need an antenna.
Yeah, I regularly go to give talks on 6 meters, and when I first started, I mean, I had to build transverter to get on the band at all. These days, everybody in the room, if they've got an HF rig, they've got 6 meters, so it's an aerial. And by the way, a beam on 6 meters, it's still fairly big, but it's a damn sight smaller than a beam on 20 meters. And so people with a limited plot can stand more chance. One of the other things we do is sponsor people to get on the band, not so much in this country, but in particularly rare DX locations. And these days, the main thing they want is an antenna and cable, usually, because they're more difficult to get in some of these places in the world. So we spend quite a lot of our money on that. And that's, if you like, it's a benefit to the general world community. I mean, there's a guy on in Liberia right now, EL2BG. He's there because we sent him an aerial. And it's a new country for a whole load of people.
Yeah,
so
that's really good.
So it sort of works.
Thank you, Chris. Well, it's been nice to squeeze a few words out of you. And good. And just before you go, let's hear about the website address. I know we're going to put that on the screen now, but it is.
It is www.uksmg.org. You can join. There's basic information on there about background. If you're a beginner, can I work anything on my G5RV? It's all there, and the answer is yes, by the way.